I was halfway down the staircase when I realized the man standing at the bottom wasn't my roommate. His head was tilted just slightly to the side like a curious animal, his eyes locked on me in a way that made my stomach turn. And in that moment, all the little background noises of the house seemed to vanish. I froze, mid-step, gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles ached. And it took me several seconds to even register that I had no idea how long he'd been standing there or how he'd gotten inside. My roommate, Mark, was supposed to be at work until after midnight, and the front door had been locked. I remember locking it myself after he left. My brain went into overdrive trying to make sense of the situation, telling myself maybe it was a friend of Mark's I'd never met, maybe he'd just come in with a key, but something about the way he didn't say a word, didn't move, didn't even blink, kept my feet glued to that step. The air felt thick, heavy, almost as if I had stepped into a completely different place than my own house. I noticed he was barefoot, wearing dark jeans and a gray hoodie with the hood pulled up so far I couldn't see the shape of his hair. My eyes darted past him toward the living room window, still latched, then to the front door, still locked. I swallowed and asked, "Who are you?" My voice cracked halfway through, betraying the fact that my throat had gone bone dry. No answer. Just that same slight head tilt, as if he was studying me the way you'd study an insect pinned to a board. I remember thinking I should run back up the stairs, lock myself in my bedroom, and call the cops. But before I could move, he reached into the front pocket of his hoodie and pulled out something small and metallic that caught the dim yellow light from the hallway lamp. My heart dropped. I took a slow step back, but he stepped forward, closing the distance with a strange, smooth gait, almost as if his feet barely touched the floor. That's when I noticed the sound, or lack of it, creak from the floorboards, no rustle of clothing, just the faint ticking of the old wall clock in the hallway behind him. I stumbled backward up the steps, my phone already in my hand, fumbling to unlock it, and as I raised it to call 911, he spoke for the first time in a low, breathless whisper. "Don't." That single word froze me again, my legs refusing to respond, my chest tightening like I couldn't get enough air. His voice didn't sound like it belonged to someone standing right in front of me. It sounded like it was right in my ear, and my skin prickled as though someone had exhaled directly on the side of my neck. I don't know what possessed me, but I turned and bolted up the remaining steps into my bedroom, slammed the door, and jammed my desk chair under the handle. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone, but I managed to dial 911, whispering to the operator that there was someone in my house. She told me to stay on the line and stay quiet. I strained to hear footsteps outside my room, but the hallway was silent. Then, faintly, I heard the soft, deliberate sound of something being dragged across the wall, slow, scraping motions that stopped directly outside my door. The operator kept asking me to confirm if I could still hear him, but I didn't answer because I was too focused on the shadow moving under the doorframe. It stayed there for what felt like hours. When the shadow finally disappeared, I heard the creak of the front door opening, then closing again. The operator told me officers were minutes away. I stayed barricaded until I heard the pounding on my door and the sound of uniformed voices calling my name. They searched the whole house, nothing. Every door was still locked from the inside, no signs of forced entry, no footprints, nothing. The cops left after telling me to keep my doors locked and call if anything else happened. But when I went back into the hallway, I saw it, etched into the wall outside my bedroom door, in shallow, deliberate lines, were the words, "See you soon." I moved out the next week, but I still wake up some nights to that same heavy silence, half expecting to see his shadow just beyond my door. By the time I realized the scratching was coming from inside the closet, I was already halfway across the room, my bare feet dragging over the carpet as if something was pulling me forward without my permission. I had been lying in bed scrolling. Through my phone, just 10 minutes earlier, headphones in, when I felt a faint vibration through the floorboards, like someone walking very slowly, deliberately, in the room beneath me. The thing is, I live alone in a one-story house. At first, I thought it was in my head, but then the sound moved, upward, like nails raking against wood from the inside of the walls. My stomach dropped when I realized the noise was coming from the closet directly across from my bed. I could see the door trembling slightly in the dim blue light from my phone screen, the cheap metal knob rattling in place as if something was trying to keep quiet while still pushing against it. I whispered, "Hello?" before I even realized how stupid that was, and the scratching stopped instantly. The silence that followed was so complete it felt unnatural. No hum from the fridge in the kitchen, no wind outside, no traffic from the street. Then, from inside the closet, something whispered back, perfectly imitating my own voice. "Hello?" My phone slipped from my hand and hit the carpet, but I didn't dare break eye contact with that trembling door. The knob twisted slowly, deliberately, and I swear I saw a pale hand with fingers far too long curl around the edge before the door creaked open just an inch. I backed toward my bedroom door, but before I could turn the knob, the closet door slammed shut so hard the frame cracked. The next second, the light bulb in my room popped, leaving me in complete darkness, except for the faint glow of my phone screen on the floor, which now showed my own camera app open, recording, and the feed wasn't pointing at me. It was facing the closet, zoomed in, and I could see an eye staring through the gap. I was holding the door shut with all my weight when something on the other side started laughing. Not loud, not forced, just a low, steady chuckle that seemed to seep through the wood in slow vibrations, rattling in my ribs in a way that made me feel both cold and sick at the same time. It wasn't the kind of laugh you hear when someone finds something funny. It was controlled, deliberate, as if they were amused at a private joke only they understood. And somehow, I was the punchline. My arms were already burning from holding the door against whatever was behind it, and my palms were slick with sweat against the cheap brass knob. 2 minutes earlier, I'd been sitting in my car outside my own house, parked in the driveway with the engine off, scrolling through my phone because I didn't feel like going inside just yet. The neighborhood was quiet. Too quiet for 7:30 p.m. on a Friday night. No kids playing, no TVs muffled through open windows, not even the occasional bark from the Labrador across the street. That quiet might have been why I noticed it so quickly. A flicker of movement in my upstairs bedroom window, a faint shadow crossing from one side to the other, slow and purposeful. At first I thought maybe it was a trick of the light or a reflection from a passing car, but no cars had passed for the last 10 minutes. I stared at the window holding my breath, and there it was again, clearer this time, like the shape of a person moving just out of sight. My first thought wasn't anything supernatural. I just assumed someone had broken in. Adrenaline surged through me so fast my hands trembled on the steering wheel. I didn't even think to call the cops first. I just grabbed my keys, slammed the car door shut, and headed inside, stupidly thinking I could scare off whoever it was. The front door was locked, the same way I'd left it, but when I stepped inside, the temperature shift hit me immediately. The air felt wrong, heavier, almost damp, with that faint, musty smell of a place that's been sealed up too long without circulation. It didn't make sense. I'd been home that morning, and everything had smelled fine. The living room looked normal at a glance, but something about the silence pressed against me from every angle. Usually you'd hear something. The distant hum of the refrigerator, the faint creak of pipes in the walls, the occasional groan of settling wood. But right then, it was as if the whole house had been smothered under a blanket of absolute stillness. I checked the kitchen, flicking on the light just to reassure myself that nothing was hiding in the corners. Everything was in place, but I couldn't shake the sensation that the moment I turned my back, something would shift in the periphery. When I stepped into the hallway that led to the stairs, my eyes naturally went upward, and that's when I saw it. The faint silhouette of someone standing at the very top, leaning slightly forward over the railing, but just far enough into The shadows that I couldn't see a face. My stomach twisted into a knot so tight it felt like I'd swallowed glass. I called out, my voice sounding smaller than I intended, asking who was up there. No answer, no movement except for a slight shift, just enough for the faint gray light. From the window in the upstairs hallway to outline part of a shoulder, an arm, the curve of a head angled unnaturally low. My body screamed at me to get out of the house, but my mind, the stubborn, stupid part, wanted to confirm I wasn't imagining it. I put my foot on the first step, the old wood groaning under my weight. The figure didn't move, didn't run, didn't speak, just stayed there like it was waiting for me. I climbed halfway, before it suddenly darted sideways, disappearing into the hallway. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I reached the top and turned left into my bedroom, certain I'd catch them in the act. The closet. Doctor was slightly ajar, just enough to see darkness beyond it. I don't know what made me grab the knob, but I yanked it open without thinking, only to find nothing. No person, no movement, just my clothes hanging exactly as I'd left them. That's when the door slammed back into my hand from the inside so hard I stumbled. I gripped it instinctively, shoving it closed again, my body pressed against it, and that's when the laughter started. Low, steady, almost conversational, as if whatever was in there had all the time in the world. My pulse was roaring in my ears, my arms screaming from the strain, but I couldn't let go. Then the laugh began to change, rising and falling like someone trying to mimic different voices, and in between the laughs, a whisper threaded its way, out through the narrow gap in the frame. "I was in your car." My knees nearly gave out. My mind started flipping back over the last half hour, and the image of my rearview mirror flashed into my head. How I hadn't bothered to check the back seat when I got in earlier, how the shadows in there had been thick enough to hide anything. My phone was in my pocket, but I didn't dare let go of the door to grab it. Every second felt stretched into minutes, and I kept picturing the possibility that if I eased my weight even slightly, the door would fly open and I'd see whatever had been watching me from the back seat of my own car, standing inches from my face. My legs were shaking so badly I thought they might just give out under me, but I kept pressing against the wood, the brass knob cold under my fingers. The laugh stopped abruptly, replaced by slow, deliberate breathing, deep inhales, long exhales, perfectly in sync with my own, until I realized they weren't copying me. I was unconsciously matching theirs.